Good evening, everybody. We're sorry to take a little longer to start than we thought. We had a minor logistics problem that has been solved, and we're ready to go with our movie. My name is Earl Stalin. I'm a coordinator of a forum that we have here at the First Universalist Church. It's actually a weekly forum, and occasionally we have programs on 9/11. And this year we happen to have an extraordinary opportunity tonight to have Richard Gage. And although our forum normally meets on Sunday mornings, sometimes Sunday midday, we're flexible, especially in a situation like this. And so we're very pleased to sponsor this program with Richard Gage and the new movie by Architects and Engineers for 911Truth. Co-sponsors are Architects and Engineers for 911Truth, which produced the movie, and also Colorado 9/11 Visibility. I'll just say a little bit about myself. I actually, on 9/11, pretty quickly, on my own initiative, took the line of the official story. This is the modus operandi of none other than Osama bin Laden. And I clung to that view without ever looking at or seeing in the media, and I tended to read the newspaper cover to cover, anything that conflicted with that. And many of you know why that is now. Until 2006, when a friend of mine that I respect asked me to put on for one of our forums a program on 9/11. And the title was 9/11, Do We Know the Truth? And my reaction was, well, don't we? And he said, well, some people think we don't. And I asked, what experts or authority do you have for that? And he mentioned Stephen Jones, who is, of course, a professor of physics at Brigham Young University, and really a world-class physicist who is the one who exposed the flaw in the cold fusion. And he mentioned other names of people in the organization, and including Fran Schur with her master's degree in psychology. And I know from experience, because I'm a trial lawyer, that it's very easy to take the viewpoint that you first heard and learned and accepted and not be willing to look at the other side of a case or a problem. And I had the experience as a trial lawyer, and partly because it's the obligation of a trial lawyer to look at both sides of a case if you're going to do a good job for a client. You can't do that without looking at both sides. So I decided we're going to put this program on for a forum, and my thinking was, because I've handled a number of cases involving engineering and science and medicine and chemistry, I'm going to see through this. And the 9/11 Visibility put on about a 2-hour program, both on the air defense failures and on the building collapses. And believe it or not, for the first time, I saw video footage of the buildings collapsing in free fall time. I had never seen that. Had I seen that at the outset, and most of you know that after a few days, that video was not shown again. And the only thing that raised the question in my mind was I had heard of a third building collapse that day. And having seen the firsthand evidence at that program, I could see it was pretty compelling evidence, and I found it very disturbing. And for the next 3 weeks, I did everything I could to prove myself wrong in these new realizations, and I couldn't do that. And lost some sleep over that. But ever since then, I've been firmly committed to getting a thorough investigation and more information out. And as Richard Falk, who is a professor of international law, said, if you have just a 30% open mind and you actually see the evidence for the first time, you're probably going to be convinced that there's a real problem with the official story, and that the government or people in the government or other people aligned with them may have had something to do with this. I want to ask a few questions here before we start. How many people learned about this through an ad on Facebook, about this program tonight? Not one that I saw. An event page on Facebook.
Say that again?
An event page on Facebook. A friend's post on Facebook. I see, I think, one hand. Well, no wonder the price of Facebook is dropping. Powerful new documentary, 9/11, Explosive Evidence, Experts Speak Out. The film's producer and director is also the CEO and founder of Architects and Engineers for 911Truth. And Richard, like me, is a relatively late comer to this 911Truth, I think around 2005, 2006. He's been an architect for 24 years in the San Francisco Bay Area. He's designed a tall steel building. He's a member of the prestigious American Institute of Architects. And like some of the other premier spokespersons for the alternative view on 9/11, Richard had been a Reagan Republican. Steve Jones was a Republican who voted for Bush. And there are a number of other, Paul Craig Roberts, Assistant Secretary of the Treasury, who actually designed a lot of the neoconservative Reaganomics, but he thinks rather differently today. Richard has been a professional willing to place his credibility and reputation on the line, and he's endured a lot of personal sacrifice. He's been tireless and tenacious, trying to answer any unanswered questions, and a lot of this may shake the foundations of our worldview. His deep concern about the destruction of the 3 World Trade Center high-rises on 9/11 began after hearing the startling conclusions of a reluctant 9/11 researcher, David Ray Griffin. Dr. Griffin was interviewed that eye-opening day in May of 2006 on KPFA, Guns and Butter radio program by Bonnie Faulkner in Berkeley, California. This changed Richard's life dramatically and launched his own unending quest for the truth about 9/11. Inspiring him to found the organization Architects and Engineers for 9/11Truth, and we have to revise the number up on these banners. It's now up to 1,700 architects and engineers. All demanding, that's a lot, all demanding a new investigation into these catastrophic structural failures. Mr. Gage has presented over 150 packed audiences of 100 to 3,000 people, and he's done this on several continents. Here, in Canada, in Europe, in Australia. Have I missed any, Richard? South America?
No.
Mexico? Okay, maybe that's next. Okay.
New Zealand.
New Zealand, all right. Very good. He's a personal source of inspiration to me, and I know many others of us here tonight. Let's give a very warm welcome to Richard Gage.
Denver, I love this place. The people work so hard, you'd have no idea how hard We Are Change Colorado and Colorado 9/11 Visibility works to bring you here. How difficult it is to how many flyers, how many posters, how many radio interviews, emails to get this many people into a room. We need 10 times this many people. And we're going to show you how to do that after you see the film. Those of you who are new to this subject, you'll wonder what all the fuss is about. We'll help you with that. How many of you, by the way, have come from outside the Denver area to get here? Thank you. Awesome. How far away? Anybody outside the state of Colorado? Did you drive out from that? Where'd you drive?
Wyoming.
Wyoming to get here tonight.
Hi.
Awesome. You too? Well, Wyoming. How far else? Just for Aspen. Wait.
Missouri.
Missouri. All right. They didn't tell you I'm coming to Missouri next week, did they?
California.
California. That's right, Joseph drove from California. Well, pretty awesome. This is the world premiere of the final edition of 9/11 Explosive Evidence Experts Speak Out. World premiere, that's the title. Don't feel like I've outdressed you, even though I made sure I did. In this milestone milestone documentary, we have interviewed more than 43 technical experts. They're here to discuss with you their findings about the destruction of not 2, but 3 World Trade Center high-rise structures. And I'm really looking forward to bringing this information to you. We sent about 2 years ago Marty McGee all around the country in this spree to collect their testimony, because prior to this we have had the landmark documentary of myself giving a presentation with all of this evidence for the last 4 years. And that's great, but there's now, we kind of get accused of us being a one-man band with this unemployed architect working out of his mother's garage. Well, I may have been unemployed, but I wasn't working out of my mother's garage. In fact, she kicked me out. So. I'm just kidding. Actually, I was quite happily employed. I was making a whole lot more money than I am now. I do have a salary. We do have a nonprofit organization. We have about 50 to 100 volunteers, depending on how you count them, because they care about what's happened to our country as a result of the events on 9/11 being something different than what they were presented to us by our government, by our media, as you can see tonight. They had to do something. So we do have 1,700. We were able to interview 43 of the best high-rise architects, structural engineers, physicists, chemists, National Medal of Science Award winner Lynn Margulis, some extraordinary talent and credibility here assembled for you on this film tonight. By the way, how many of you are relatively unfamiliar with that 3rd skyscraper that collapsed on 9/11? Just haven't heard much about it. Let me get a count if I can. Go like this so I can see you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Okay, and that's good, because that means we're in a place where we can learn something. We'll tell you about Building 7 first, because we don't have the knowledge base. We all think we know how the Twin Towers came down. Fires, jet plane impacts. In fact, let me ask you, in this room, before we show you the film, how many of us, I'll ask you 3 questions. You have to vote for one of these 3, that's the rules. How many of us pretty much believe the official story, and I'll explain that. How many of us are unsure? You've heard a few things. How many of us may already believe that the towers are brought down by controlled demolition, explosively? First, the official story: the jet planes hit the towers, large explosion of jet fuel, fires ignited, weakening of the structural steel system, and a gravitational collapse all the way down to the ground. No reason to believe this is what we have been taught. How many of us are pretty much there? Official story. 1, 2, 3, 4. Why are we laughing? Mr. Rockefeller.
That's Rockefeller there.
We're dressed up tonight. Make a statement, will you?
Let us not tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories.
I think it's safe to remove him from the list that I just counted, so that we'll make that 3 instead of 4 who are believe in the official story. How many of us are unsure? We've heard a few things. You're here to learn. Otherwise, go like this so I can actually count you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. You may already believe that these towers are brought down by controlled demolition. Why didn't you guys bring your friends? Can you imagine how many people would be in this room if each of you brought just one friend? Oh, you don't have any more friends. Fortunately for you, we have a DVD that you can get. And I think you'll find it exceptionally credible. So, yeah, I'll help you with that. Don't worry. How many architects are there here tonight besides me? 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Are you petition signers yet? Yeah. No. We're going to get you. Oh, hi. You're back from Vallejo. I am. That's right. This is an engineering graduate student who now decided she didn't want to go into engineering, she wanted to be a doctor. So if you want to learn what it's like to go into medical school, talk to, I forgot your name? Katie, that's right. Beardsdorf. Oh, I got it. And how many engineers tonight? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They always have numbers. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Awesome. How many normal people? Yeah.
Not falling for that one.
And any firefighters tonight? Not that you're not normal. Firefighters.
No firefighters?
You're not a firefighter, Rob. So that's great. Let's share. I'll also share with you that we've got an exciting section in the film tonight, and for many people, it is their favorite section. We have 9 experts in the human condition, which is really what we're facing. After you see the technical evidence, you're going to be wrestling with something because the implications of this are really difficult for us to grasp. And so it turns out that here in Denver, we have 4 of our stars from the psychology section. I want to introduce them to you so you can look for them during the film. First, Fran Schur is here. Fran, just stand up. I'm going to bring Fran and the others up here. Let me introduce them first. Dorothy Lorig is in the back. Dorothy. Bob and Marty Hopper are here. Bob and Marty, look for their shining faces. And we'll have a discussion about how we deal with this information. It'll be the best part of the evening, I assure you. We released a pre-release version of this film 6 months ago as a kind of a rough cut. And we got a lot of feedback from a lot of people. Since then, we've included dozens of videos to support the experts, hundreds of diagrams and photographs to be included. So how many of you did see that pre-release version online or wherever? Awesome. So let me know if you think there's been an improvement. We certainly hope so. It has been reworked considerably since then. Because AE911Truth is about justice for the family members, justice for all Americans, as you'll see when the movie begins. There have been considerable ramifications of 9/11, since 9/11, on our personal liberties, on lives lost around the globe, and certainly the 3,000 almost victims lost in the towers themselves deserve justice. And so that's what we're about. Let us not be swayed by those who might suggest that we are upsetting the family members. The family members will be healed only by the truth. And that is what we're about, bringing the truth to the American people and to the world through this film. So I hope you enjoy it. Let's begin. How many of us at this point believe the official story? We had 3 before. How the towers came down. Jet plane impacts and fires. Raise your hand real high, please. Still believe the official story? Good. Thank you for being brave. I appreciate that. Anybody else? So we have 1. How many of you are still unsure? We had 21 before. Unsure? 1, 2. How many? Any others? Okay. And how many of you think the towers were brought down by controlled demolition? Okay. So we have some discussion. After all, right, Al-Qaeda probably didn't have access to these towers to set the explosives, right? We're not talking about the official myth that was generated, fed to us by the media and government officials. So we have huge problems as a result. And the evidence is one thing. The evidence leads us down toward the realization that we have to have a real investigation, an accountability, bringing the perpetrators to justice. We will support any legal investigation, rational legal investigation, with our evidence. We are not criminal investigators, so we don't start criminal cases. We're not attorneys. We'll support the cases that do occur. And some have, and we have been supported, but not nearly enough. It's been 10 years, almost 11, since 9/11, and we have serious gain to make. But let's first deal with some of the implications that hit us personally. And to that end, I would like to bring up those who appeared in our film to help us with the psychology. Marty and Bob Hopper, would you come up? And Fran Schur and Dorothy, would you all come up? We have seats for you guys. And a big round of applause for these brave That's personal.
The question I have, in making the film, were there attempts to interview those people who supported the present belief system? And how was that met? In other words, other architects, other engineers who would disagree with your observations and your...
Well, let me see. That's Rich, right?
Correct.
If someone asked me why haven't, basically I think the real question is why haven't you interviewed people who agree with the official version?
Right, who are experts in their area.
Yes, and I guess what I would say is that, first of all, the public hears information about the official story all the time. It's been repeated over and over and over what the official story is. And what we need now is to hear the alternative theory. So that's just the first thing that comes to my mind to say, Rich. Is that helping at all?
Well, I would feel more comfortable drawing conclusions because I'm not an engineer, I'm not an architect, I'm not a physicist, I'm not a chemist. And so it's hard. What was said in the film makes a lot of sense to me. But on the other hand, I don't have any background in those areas.
You'd like to see point by point. The alternative theory makes their point, and then the official story makes their point, and then you can listen to both sides.
And how they write, and how they differ with each other, and have an actual dialogue with each other.
And yes, and those of us in the 911 Truth movement would love to see that as well. We cannot get anyone, an engineer or a physicist or anyone like that, to really have a healthy debate with us. We did have a debate last year with actually a personal friend of mine, Chris Moore, who is a journalist, and he debated Richard Gage. So anytime we find someone to debate with us, we welcome that, and we would especially welcome it with someone who has the credentials that you speak of. Unfortunately, they're not coming forward to do that.
Also, to your point, I do hear this a lot, as at least the people are open enough to look at both sides, is what you're asking. Please, let's see both sides. So, and the same thing happens. It's very hard to get it. And a lot of my friends who did ask that, when we did have this huge this debate with Richard, it was a huge deal to set up. It was at CU earlier or last year. They still didn't come. It's like, here's your chance, to see this. And people still, I think, really don't want to hear the information, so they still did not attend. So that was disappointing.
And why do they not want to hear the information? Is there anything you can expound on, and from what you've already shared in the film itself?
I think it's many of the things that the points there. I think one of the main things is a lot of what you heard around the worldview and people. And the myth of the exceptional America and the good America. It's like my government would not kill this many people. They would not deliberately do that. And I often point out that was followed by then what we're up to, sending people to Afghanistan and Iraq, and how many Americans were we killing there. It's like, okay, so it's still presenting evidence, but there's still, I just think this, it is against their worldview and shakes their belief system, as was discussed.
Bob? I think there's something that we didn't address in the movie because none of us are brain neurophysiologists, but I think a significant percentage of the world, just by virtue of their brain wiring, are not open to this information. I don't know what that percentage might be, but before we even get to cultural and community and other factors, there's evidence coming out now that the wiring of your brain that you're born with makes you more or less open to new information. And this is clearly new.
I feel very angry, but not because I don't know this thing before. I even know this like 10 years ago before I moved to this country. But what really feel me more uncomfortable is not with the people that don't know or the people that don't want to believe. I'm okay with that. What really I feel bad or angry is with all the people that know that things is wrong and is nothing happening for it. We need to move forward. You know, it's like you show people, like families and everything, that's the past. That's the past. We need to move forward and we need to do something. And I don't see it like you going with signs, you know, on the street or videos, you know, that wonderful documentary, right? And it's an excellent job that you did, right? But I think that is not what we should do. My question is, we need to do something else. Because if you need a new investigation, or this is my interpretation, right? Then you are asking like the murderer to put himself in jail. That's never gonna happen, right? That's impossible. So you're asking for something happen that is never gonna happen, and even after 10 years.
Let's address that. I think those are excellent questions. So before you go on, and I will allow you to go on, because I like what you're saying, let me address some of the points you made and ask Fran and Dorothy and Bob and Marty to discuss, and We Are Change Colorado. How many people here from We Are Change Colorado? Woo-hoo! These people are out in the street every month, on the 11th of every month, just like they are all across the world. The 911Truth movement is growing by millions every year. So there is something being done, but there's not enough people doing it. We are essentially after educating the American public, and that is one key way. And on our action kit, which is at 911expertspeakout.org, you can see many different types of actions that you can do, sometimes and a lot of times right from home. You can go onto the internet and share share with your friends, relatives, members of the media, congressmen. You can send them the link to 911expertspeakout.org where they can watch the trailer and download the movie and watch it. There's so many different things that can be done, like tabling. There's tools that we have at our store, AE911Truth.org, to help you. These people have the brochures that are back here. They have the DVDs that all of you should have, 6 to 12 of them circulating all the time. He's absolutely right, the gentleman. We have to be doing something. It's about action. It's not about asking the perpetrators to investigate themselves. Why do we have a petition to Congress? Because we have a government. Yes, it appears to have been compromised at some level by rogue elements, okay? That seems inevitable. Al-Qaeda didn't have access to these towers. Neither did too many others. The security company itself, Securicom Stratosec, seems to have been, must have been involved, and the ACE Elevator Company had a contract to renovate the tower's elevator systems and modernize them the 9 months prior to 9/11, which could have given them access to the core columns and beams in the building, which would also explain why there is a white powder in all of on the desks and so forth they're cleaning up throughout the building. So we have lots of information beyond what you've seen in the movie. So I want to get this information to you. So I'm going to give you an opportunity, if you haven't signed up for our free monthly email newsletter already, we'll pass it around for the rest of you so that you can do that. could you come and take this and pass it around to that side, please? And over here. And just keep the clipboard moving back. So we'll email you the information. The local 911 Truth group, Colorado 911 Visibility, did I say it right? .org, Colorado 911 Visibility.org. And we are Change Colorado. Did I say that right? Awesome.
Org.
Are incredible vehicles of local change and action that you can get involved with as well. Now, the second thing I want to invite you to do is help us at AE911Truth. It turns out that we're not able so far on this 30-city tour at this 8th stop, yet though we were fairly successful in filling this building, we are very unsure that we're going to make it through without going into debt about $5,000. So you can see that it is essential that this information get to the American people. And I'm asking you to support our organization in a bigger way than you did as you paid your $10 fee to get here. So I'm going to pass around a box. Now, this is not a church. Actually, it is. But you don't have to feel guilty. If you feel like you've done your part or you can't contribute anymore, that's fine. Just pass the box on. But what happens if we do not succeed in waking up the American people? The people who brought us 9/11 may very well be planning something larger than 9/11. If we don't educate the American people about the truth about 9/11, we may be facing, like as we've been promised by members of the media in Congress and the Bush administration, a smoking gun that's a nuclear mushroom cloud. And I don't know who would be bringing that to us other than those who have the skill to operate these false flag operations, of which there are a chain, including the Gulf of Tonkin incident, which Robert McNamara said never happened. The Gulf of Tonkin incident produced the Vietnam War, in which 1 million people have been killed and 50,000 soldiers. If it never happened, it was produced, it was manufactured and sold to the American people to manipulate them. There is a long chain of these types of things, including that brought to President Kennedy, the Northwoods operation, but signed by every member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, saying we're going to shoot down an airliner, we're going to blame Castro, and we're going to invade Cuba. Thank God he had the courage to stand up to them, but he didn't last very long. These are the kind of forces we are up against, and it takes every patriotic American to stand and do something. And that's what we're doing at AE911Truth as key spokespersons within the 9/11 Truth movement. We're speaking all across the country, so help us to make it the rest of the way and wake this country up. So please, there's so many things that you can do. Do your part tonight.
Even if I buy in, I'm saying from their perspective, what is going to change? What really can we change? So getting to that point, let's get to the solution. The solution is that the people that perpetrated this, it's essential for them to be able to control the media. Absolutely. Agreed? Yeah. All right. In order to control the media, you had to control the monetary system. Agreed?
Before you get to the monetary system, let me just interject an interesting fact, which I'm sure you're aware of, but everybody else may not be. Who owns the media if it's being controlled? Turns out in America, 90% of the mainstream media is controlled by just 6 corporations. Now, who owns those corporations? The people that are sitting on the boards of directors of these industries sit on the same board, or the same people who sit on the boards of the arms industry, the oil industry, the banking industry, and the insurance industry, all of whom profited enormously by the activities and events of 9/11. Who are the people that are speaking up and have the courage in the media to stand up and challenge these institutions with the truth? We have one member of of Colorado Public Television here tonight who has done just that. Sherry, will you stand up, please? A special guest. Sherry took the movie Press for Truth, took personal sacrifice in front of her board. It was Fran and Sherry. Fran instigated Sherry. Sherry got instigated. You saw it here in Denver and all across Colorado and beyond. 9/11 Press for Truth, the story of the Jersey girls, who in turn had the courage to stand up for the truth and say, our questions aren't answered here. They've been shelved. And so then Sherry invited us with 9/11 Blueprint for Truth, the Architecture of Destruction, which is our DVD, which is also available in the back. And she has just asked me, this is good, Mr. Gage. You should put this up on Colorado Public Television too. So look for it in August. So this is very exciting for us. So we're very, very, very honored. One person in one public television station in the country. It starts somewhere. Let that somebody be like Sherry, but let it be you. There's something all of us can do. We can all be a Sherry Burnson. Okay? Let this fire spread.
Okay.
Okay.
To that end, I studied basically, Ithaca, New York has had a local currency for 20 years. There's some local currencies which have been around and have millions of dollars in circulation. Well, in Summit County, we've started one and we just literally give the money away. It's barter currency. We have 30 businesses signed up in a month, and the next step with that local currency, we're creating our own local media. And then we bring the businesses that join the local currency cooperative to be part of this network, and then we edify them. Well, now we have a 2-hour-a-day radio show that's starting this Monday, where we're going to broadcast this to the world as a specific solution, whereby which the people take their energy out of this debt-based monetary system and create their own organic monetary system. And Michael Storm here, and the We Are Changed, please stand up so everybody can see it. Come on. But anyway, the point is, Denver is doing the same thing. And the hours-based community currency in Summit County can trade with the hours-based community currency in Denver. And by the way, he's going to have a 2-hour-a-day radio show as well. This is on Republic Broadcasting Network, so please start participating in this. Look these guys up. The name of their currency is Mile High Hours, milehighhours.com. So this is a way that you can start participating and vote with your wallet by supporting other businesses. Literally, if you have a business in Denver, you can get, basically we do it where you get $200 a month for free. And then we do free marketing videos because all of us activists know how to edit video. So anyway, this is a solution that we're doing right now. So please participate. Ours is mountainhours.com and theirs is milehighhours.com. And thank you for doing this. What you guys is beautiful and amazing. And thanks for being pioneers and standing up and let your soul soar above the sphere-based garbage, because we truly can have abundance this year once we change the color of pieces of paper that we call money.
I just want to tell you that every time, almost to this day, at least especially in the beginning, when I would try to talk to people about 9/11, I had to push through my own taboo wall. It's such a taboo subject. And I had to push through a resistance every time and to talk about it. And the resistance was not only from the people out there that I was trying to talk to. That was true. The resistance was also in me, because, there's fear there. I don't want to be ostracized. And I, like one person said to me, who was the leader of a very prominent peace and justice organization, she said, "Fran, have you lost friends by talking about this subject?" And yes, I have. I have alienated family members. I have alienated friends. It has been very, very difficult. And what I would like to ask all of you, if some of you would just raise your hand and just yell out, and I will repeat it in the mic. What what is the resistance inside of you? What is the fear inside of you that prevents you from talking to your friends and to your family members? Can some of you give me an answer on that?
Losing credibility.
I'm sorry, losing credibility.
Respect.
Losing credibility and respect.
Good.
Somebody else?
Them.
Somebody else, just an answer, and then we'll get to the questions.
Being marginalized.
Is it Ellen?
Being marginalized.
Being marginalized. Anybody else?
Just belt it out.
You alienated your sister. Okay, anyone else? Green shirt.
Insecurity.
Insecurity. So you feel insecure to talk about.
The ones that we're trying to get to.
Are insecure.
And fearful.
They're insecure and fearful.
All right, Dorothy, would you like to add to this discussion? And Marty and Bob, the man.
Well, I wanted to respond to what Fred had said, and my own experience of trying to communicate this information to other people is a tendency on their part to decide that I'm even crazier than they always knew I was. So I think for a lot of us, you know, that we tend to be a little bit extreme in how we view the world, or not, maybe extreme's the wrong word, but we tend to like to go for the interesting information, and that can really scare people who like to go straight down the middle on everything.
I'd like to give the woman in black a chance to ask your question.
Go ahead, woman in black.
My main question is, obviously there's a direct goal here in revealing the truth to everyone, but there's more to the truth than the fact that it is an inside job. There's a lot more, and so what is the vision of architects and engineers beyond the vision? Let's say you get 100% of Americans as a group to believe that it was an inside job. What's your goal from there? Because there has to be something beyond the initial vision. There has to be a purpose beyond letting everyone know the truth.
I'll start that, and I'm sure there's some important responses here, but it's not incumbent upon the architects and engineers for 911Truth to speculate where this might go, or really how even it gets there. Our job is to educate the public en masse, to put pressure on the government, pressure on the media, and let the chips fall where they may. Now that could look really chaotic, right? When Americans en masse find out what has happened to them, they're going to get pissed off, okay? I'm not responsible for what happens, okay? I don't know if it's going to be nice and peaceful. I have no idea. Something big has to happen, because something big did happen to us. Fran, I'd like you to discuss the analogy that you have used before about family healing from events that are as traumatic as this one was to the American, or will be to the American psyche.
You do?
Family.
Family healing?
Family healing.
Okay, well,
Worst.
I think we're talking about, if you're alluding to the worst kinds of family healing, perhaps there's sexual abuse in the family. There's some kind of abuse going on. Think if everybody in that family does not confront the parents, does not confront authorities with that abuse, what's going to happen? What's the results of that? We all know the abuse is going to continue. It might even get worse. So it's the same on the collective level as it is on the individual level. If we don't have the courage to really look at this, to go past our own taboo barrier and speak to people, try to educate our friends, and speak to our representatives, if we remain silent, there's a friend of mine in Vail who are writing a little booklet called Healing 9/11, Breaking the Silence of Good People. You know, in Germany, the good people of Germany were all silent. They could not believe what was going on. Surely, this is not going on in my own backyard. But it was, and it is now here. There's much more than 9/11. 9/11 is the symptom, you know. So we must find the courage to speak up, or do what we can do. Maybe 9/11 isn't your issue. Maybe your issue is something else. And just do your part. You know, that's what we all have to do. If you want to get involved with 9/11, we have a wonderful group. We really, really need help. We need financial help. We need help from people who have skills. I really encourage you, even if you don't want to get involved with 9/11, at least speak up and talk to your friends, talk to your acquaintances, give them a DVD. Get the courage to do that and say, when you give them the DVD, tell them, ask them, don't tell them, ask them, please watch this for me and tell me what you think. Might take them a while. Ask them a question, open up dialogue with them. Don't tell them, don't give them the answer. Ask them to tell you what they think. The other thing I would ask you to do is sign up on our email list as well as Richard's and receive our emails. We only send maybe 1 to 3 emails a month. Very, very few. They're very informative and they usually tell you about our monthly meetings. We don't only talk about 9/11, we talk about the context in which such a thing as 9/11 could happen. And we show DVDs every month on this. The other thing I would encourage you to do is sign up for Jason Bosch's on his list, which is at our bookstore back there. Jason Bosch has been for years showing fabulous documentaries in our area on all sorts of issues. And he supports us and we support him. And I think just to know what he's showing and every once in a while go and learn something would be another thing you can do. Now, so pass it on. I just want to get back to your question, which is just for me personally, the broader goal for me is we have to end the violence. We have to end the killing. And the U.S. is the most arrogant power broker of violence in the world, in my opinion. As an American, it's my responsibility to stop that.
Absolutely.
And the reason that I work on this particular issue of 9/11 is everyone, as I said, everyone in the world knows about this issue and everyone has an emotional connection to this issue. It was horrific. And so that is where I think we can connect with each other, and to me, to expose what happened, it is down the rabbit hole because it opens it up, as we heard about, to the monetary, to everything. So it is a dark place to go, but we have to find justice and live in peace, and that is why I do this work and the ultimate goal for me.
Thank you.
I have a question for you, Bob. To segue off what Fran was saying about dealing with this, some of the problem I have talking about it to other people and also coming to grips with it myself, we're kind of brought into focus when I heard an interview on KGNU last Sunday with Dr. Alan Gilbert in his book. They mentioned that a lot of it's grief, and then I realized this whole grieving process really does kind of put it into focus if you think in terms of grief as a way of looking at what really happened to us and the way that people deny it. And then I immediately forgot that whole five-step process of grieving. And my question would be, if it was put into that kind of a context of grieving, is there any trick that y'all might have come up with in modern psychology or whatever that would help us to preempt the resistance that people are going to have to a grieving statement like this, or a logical presentation of facts that will lead to a grief response?
I don't think there's any way to bypass that process, because when you first hear this information, as I say in the film, it's like a punch in the stomach. And I don't know if you have any kind of sensitivity at all, I don't see how you can avoid starting there. Now, as you say, there's the five steps to get through it, but I don't know any way of easing people into that. Do you?
Just I mean, I think I have to start by listening to people and finding out where they are. If someone, personally in my activism, if someone is a family member, has lost someone in 9/11, if someone has been in the wars that we have started and lost a few, I don't push them on this. I feel we need to accept and listen and go where they are. There are plenty of millions of us who can do this activism and work. But I still think at some level, for those of us who can address it, is probably the most healing, even though it can be painful to go through, then you go through the pain.
This is more of a question using aloud, but I think support groups, for instance, discussion groups where you can have several people, maybe you read the same information and have time for each person to be able to talk and express what she or he is thinking and feeling. Because this information, I know that when I first learned it 6 years ago, I spent a summer being very isolated and being just incredibly scared and furious and sad and, the whole works. If I had known about Colorado 9/11 visibility, I would have had sort of an instant support group. We need to let people know that there's people that they can process this with, because otherwise it can make you feel crazy.
Yeah, and I would like to say that I think what you can do is you can soften the resistance by the way you approach people. In other words, like I said, don't force your truth on them, but ask them to look at a DVD and give you their feedback. And sometimes they'll tell you they don't want to look at it. Like I've had friends tell me about a heart problem. I just can't do this, and that's to be respected. But once people let this information in, once it gets past their barriers, they will have to go through their own process. And that process may be whatever their process is going to be, whatever it is, and they're going to react to it in whatever way they react to it. And I'll share that with me. When this information was really getting in, so much anxiety was arising in me. So much anxiety, believe me. That first of all, like Richard said, or Earl said, I didn't sleep for nights. It was, and as I began tuning in more and more to this anxiety, not fear, should I leave the country? What should I do? As the fear started, as I started tuning into that fear and that anxiety more and more, I was able to discern that was coming from me. Just to be honest, it was coming from an old, very early trauma that I sustained as a child. And so I got back into therapy, and that's how I dealt with it. And I was able to go back and help resolve that old trauma. And now I'm able to be with people, and I don't have to push the information on them. And interestingly enough, they're starting to come to me more. And, if they don't want to talk about it, I talk about what they want to talk about. And then usually the subject will come around to 9/11, and I can talk. And they've opened it up.
Sometimes it takes more than one exposure. On a bike trip with a woman who's been working on the bike trip was a woman who worked for the State Department for 15, 20 years. And she was stuck with us for a week on the bikes. And she had heard about this before, but had never pursued it. But having heard it from us again, she was open to the information. So it may not get through the second time, but you're planting a seed.
Excellent points. Next question.
What if everybody knows, but is unwilling to accept the truth and challenge their views because they prayed to a flag for the first 12 years of their lives and had the creativity beaten out of them before 4th grade? How do I deal with the smartest person I know who uses everything he knows in order to try and cling to his beliefs instead of acknowledge the obvious truth in front of him? How do I deal with that? Because when you asked your question about what makes you afraid to talk to people, my answer was that I'll lose respect for them. And I don't keep friends around that I don't respect, so I don't have a lot of friends. So.
Wow, the questions are awesome tonight. Who wants it?
We have lots of friends like that too who do that, and I've learned there's some people who it's like pick your battles. It's really not worth it. If someone is that resistant and continuously resistant, I would not continue, and I do have many friends like that, it's really not worth it. So I would go where there's more of an opening, because you just, to me, that's just very personally frustrating. They're probably not willing to hear it, but you could offer something like offer them.
They said World Trade Center 7 wasn't good enough evidence. He said that was bad evidence. He said World Trade Center 7 was bad evidence, and as a conspiracy theorist, I need to use my best evidence. And yeah, he saw the video of it going like this. But he said on the other side, oh, it's badly fire damage and all. You know, he's just looking for whatever crap he can find that supports his, you know, his belief system. It's all about the beliefs. They have a religious view of the government. They don't believe in God. They're not Christians, but they pray to a flag and they love America like it's God and think it's basically God.
I agree with you. Again, I would kind of not continue to go there.
Yeah. Just move on.
By the way, you brought up the subject nationalistic faith. A plug for our bookstore. There's a DVD by David Ray Griffin. He gave that talk right here in Colorado at IU School of Theology on nationalistic faith. How people believe more in our country than they do in God. You know, so I highly recommend that. And it's about 9/11, of course.
In fact, you'll find David Ray Griffin on the second DVD, which is inside of this package, which includes the film you saw tonight. So it's a 2-disc DVD set with a whole lot more powerful testimony from our psychology panel and a whole lot more testimony from the other 43 architects and engineers, along with their bios, their credibility, their experience. So there's a lot more inside this package than you even saw tonight. So be sure to pick it up. It's $20, and you can buy 10 of them for even less.
It's the 100th monkey theory, right? That's what we're waiting for.
Can you guys discuss the 100th monkey theory?
I think the idea with the 100th monkey is that if you put 100 monkeys, I'm going to get this wrong, but somehow, yeah, eventually the monkeys will produce the complete works of Shakespeare. I'm pretty sure that's
How about Bob? All right, you tell us the 100th monkey theory.
I've heard it given way better than I will, but basically what it is that these monkeys, they'll begin spread out across their natural habitat, and they will actually pick up on a trait. Well, the first monkey picks it up, and the second monkey picks it up, and once it hits that 100th monkey, boom, they all know it. And from there on, they all know this trait, whether it's how to peel off a banana. Once they all start to learn it, then it just somehow goes across everybody. And so pretty soon, we're going to cross that tipping point where we're going to see everybody, oh, okay, my friends and neighbors, they believe it now? Okay, well, I believe it. Once it's comfortable to talk about it when you're playing golf and you're at the golf clubhouse, and once it's comfortable for them to finally admit, hey, buddy, yeah, I believe it. Yeah, it came down, yeah, 6.5 seconds, yeah. But they're too scared at this point still to let go of that, kind of camaraderie of all living a lie, and they're all in the same boat, and everything's fine. So that's kind of the 100 monkey theory. Is what we're hoping for here. Is what we're hoping is we are going to cause that tipping point through great documentaries like this that are broken down into. I saw the first one, and this one's a lot more concise to the point, and that's how we're going to get it across. Is concise and to the point, and get it out to as many people as we can. So that's what we're trying to do.
And there's reason for hope. How many of you have been handing out literature to people and on the street for 5 or 6 years now? Let me ask you this. How many of you have found a complete difference in response in the last year or two than 5 or 6 years ago? All of it. We're winning. Yes. Something is happening out there. There is a response to this. You don't get flipped off hardly at all anymore. People don't get angry and start to beat on you. They say something like, "Oh, I've heard something about that." I mean, they're receptive. They'll listen. Most of them, or at least half of them, which is very, very different. So we might be approaching it. Next question. Go ahead. Stand up, please.
It's not really a question. I wanted to respond to something Fran said. She had said that she felt a lot of anxiety. When I discovered 911Truth, I wasn't anxious at all, partly because I can't stand thick chain. And it was very easy for me to believe that he could do anything evil. And also, Earl in Forum had shown us videos of having to do with the history of the Middle East, correspondingly in the United States as well, and false flag operations. I became acquainted with false flag operations. Then I found out about 911Truth. So it was in a context, and the ground had been plowed, and I had been prepared so that I could more easily accept it. You know, and I think that was very important. So if there's any kind of video which concentrates on false flag operations and just international politics, that combined with everybody now knowing that there are really rotten, dirty, cruddy people out there, like in Wall Street, the 1%, I think, you know, I'm hopeful that something can happen here.
I do know that there's a short history of false flag operations in the movie Loose Change American Coup. So check that out. Very good. Is there another one?
I don't know if there's...
Terror Storm. Terror Storm
Yeah.
by Alex Jones.
Yeah, and that's actually really good in Barry Zwicker's. Well, Barry Zwicker's The Great Conspiracy.
The Great Conspiracy, Barry Zwicker.
Which is in the back of his, also in the back of his book, The Towers of Deception. But I wanted to make a point of what yours... Yeah, it would be excellent. But what I think the point you're bringing up is very good, and what it says is that, you know, we have to start where people are, not where we want them to be. And if that resistance is so strong, if they will actually, what I've recommended sometimes if people just go to even Wikipedia, they have a fabulous list of false flag operations at Wikipedia, and just start building the ground. I did not start with controlled demolition. When we first started, we didn't know that much about the collapse of the towers. Back in the early days, you know, we were talking about the air defense failure, and that was shocking enough. So we were able to build on this information. When you hit them with collapses, like a lot of times it's just too much.
Over here.
I just had a question. I'm sort of addicted to Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman, and I'm wondering, since I listened to her so faithfully, how come I haven't heard Richard Gage being interviewed by Amy Goodman? Sure would like to see that one. Hear that.
You have no idea how many people have asked her, told her, admonished her to tell the truth about 9/11. After all, she was standing there watching Building 7 come down and running away from it as well. And yet she had only the courage to invite the makers of Loose Change 9/11 and then pit them against these shysters from Popular Mechanics who specialize in disinformation, owned by Rupert Murdoch, the Fox News. Hearst Corporation bought Popular Mechanics, not Rupert Murdoch. Yeah, the chief icon of yellow journalism, who said, bring me the photos and I'll bring you the war, Spanish-American War. It was created almost single-handedly by him. So, I forgot what the question was. Oh, yeah, so Amy Goodman falls into the category of journalists who will not stand up and speak the truth. Is it fear? Is it that they have been intimidated? Is it that they are on a payroll? We don't know the answers to those questions in most cases, particularly hers, but she is defensive and angry about her, about being pressured about this. So continue the pressure.
And Amy Goodman was caught on tape, I think, by We Are Change Colorado, I think it was Rob, saying that she thinks that 9/11 needs to be much more investigated, quote unquote.
That's good. So she's on tape calling for an investigation but won't report it.
How can we take the mind control that the CIA uses through the corporate media and as a boomerang, send it back around. When they program us to respond a certain way, ooh, you're racist. How can we take and use that kind of stuff to turn it around on them to wake the people up? Does that question make sense?
I have one idea, which is about using, I mean, the idea that this was not an inside job is ridiculous. And I think we need to be starting to put that out there. It's ridiculous to believe the government story. It makes no sense visually, it makes no sense logically. Once we know that they lied about getting us into Iraq, that should make an automatic connection to them lying to us about, getting us into Afghanistan. We just need to call them on their BS.
I guess my thought about that is I would not want to use what they use.
Well, I agree.
So what they use is fear.
Right. No, I want to boomerang it back. Somehow.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't use that.
No, I wouldn't use fear. No.
How about an IKEA
Love.
analogy
The opposite is
instead
love,
of
right?
boomerang?
Well, information, and I've seen some of the best, most basic about how do you control people, unfortunately, from the Nazi regimes, from Hitler quotes and Goring.
Right.
Say, oh, it's really simple. You put them in fear, blah, blah, blah. It's like, whoa. So I wouldn't use those. So we use information, facts, compassion, a different
No, I wasn't saying wasn't saying to use fear, but how we can break that trance. We got to break the trance of the people.
How do you break the trance, Marty?
Well, I mean, I think that...
Right brain, that's what I think, yeah, right brain.
Let's
Or
let
movies,
Marty,
fiction,
Bob
fiction
answer.
movies,
Bob?
fiction.
There's a book 40 years ago, The Games People Play. And these are games, and the way to get out of a game is to step out of it and point out what's going on. For example, blaming the victim is the most common game. You see it in the media all the time. If we can bring concepts like blame the victim, false flag, we're exposing their game.
Okay, no, that's good.
Great points. And you had a point. Can you grab the microphone?
Yeah, can I just make one thing? So that's what we're kind of trying to do. Wayne Walton's giving us a chance to do a radio show, and we're going to call it Mile High Liberty Media. We're going to try to focus on positivity, love, the solutions to all this. Instead of the fear-based news that we're shoved down our throats all day, every day, what if we had a 2-hour segment every day that was focused on the great things that have happened, and love, and solutions to all these problems that we want to talk about, and it gets us depressed almost when you hear about it all the time. And so we can really focus on changing that paradigm of the news to be based on all of the positive things going on. And I know it's going to be hard at first to get it going, but once we get going, everything can be positive, and you can make news stories about whatever. And I think just one thing I want to comment to is a lot of our decisions and a lot of our reactions are all chemical because of the food we eat, because of the water that we're drinking. And so really, I want to come back a little bit to somebody who said, what do we do? What is our focus at the long term? And it's really more about, if you can understand that, they carried out 9/11 as a false flag terror attack, just like they have systematically for every single major war, then what else have they done? And so they're poisoning our food and our water to chemically hold us down so we don't even know our own emotions. We are just, the hormones in our body are jumping around telling us to, there's no way that could happen. Well, that's not even you. That's not even your thoughts. And so, we've got to first break this down as, wow, if that's true, then we've got to relook at everything we're, first of all, putting into our bodies, because that's changing everything that we think. And so if we can start changing this, we change the structure of everybody's food that we're eating. We're going to stop eating the crap. We're going to stop eating the poison. We're going to stop drinking the poison water. Then the consciousness is going to continue just to move forward, explode, and who knows what kind of positive universe we might end up living in if each and every single one of us takes that responsibility and throws it on our own shoulders. So, next guy.
Wow, good points.
What I also want to add is that when we do our street actions lately, we found that theater works the best. People really get into it. They see something fun going on here, so we're going to start trying to use theater ourselves more often in our actions personally. Music's another big thing to get through to people in a positive manner.
Thank you. Next question.
Thank you. I'm Charles Nichols. I use poetry, and I get about a 30% success rate with audiences that have never seen me before. Blowback. Something called blowback has become the key to modern war and modern history. We let our foreign spies do what they must in foreign lands, but please not here at home, where all of us enshrine the rule of law. So when our spies learned the attack would come, not days, nor weeks, nor months, but years before, they had the time to think the matter through, and time enough to think unthinkable in idle minds where devils love to play. Blowback is when you get the chance to sculpt public opinion. Blowback is when you get the chance to sculpt public reaction to a new event because you know so much, so far ahead, so Machiavellian and without a prince to set the 40,000 charges needed. One miracle, how little life was lost because they got out every one they could before they pressed the button on that day. Again, they got out every one they could, then pressed the second button on that day. The firefighters still on their way up. The omelet means you have to break some eggs. The arrogance to hijack history. Blowback to sculpt public opinion thus was not the main thing, but the only thing. We are the target of our foreign spies. We are the only target that they have. 560 girders towered tall, each 1,300 feet above the ground, each blown apart in lengths to lift and load, apart before they ever touched the ground. Twin Towers' footprint into which they fell and mostly fit and not much overflowed, apart before they ever touched the ground, each blown apart in lengths to lift and load and haul away and make to disappear for truckload after truckload after truckload. A demolition most professional. We're told that's how it's done by those who know. The towers fell at nearly free fall speed to galvanize and to electrify, to do for us what Pearl Harbor once did for the parents of our grandparents. And we, like they, renounce caution outright. Korea, Vietnam, and Gulf War I were never close to war as war should be. Such shabby, tawdry, filthy little wars, not glorious war as war is meant to be. Something called blowback has become the key to modern war and modern history.
Thanks, my name is Bob May. One quick comment. I think there's a lot of resistance in the general public because if they accept the truth, they're going to feel obligated to do something about it, and they don't want to take that time and energy. I have one quick comment about the documentary, and that is I was looking for the nanothermite cutting of that steel beam that shows very clearly that it was set up to be a demolition.
There are 45-degree cuts on some of the steel beams that have been retrieved from the pile. Turns out that several of those 45-degree cuts were made during the cleanup effort by the iron workers, and so now we're having arguments with debunkers about which one's which, and so we didn't want to engage in the arguments. We wanted to show the scientific forensic evidence that's irrefutable and unarguable for the most part. So we let go of that piece of evidence.
Okay, but I do have a question for the psychologist, and that is, with such blatant evidence, as far as I'm concerned, that it was an inside job, why hasn't just one person who was on the inside come out? And obviously, this person would have to be anonymous you know, like the WikiLeaks or whatever, so that they wouldn't be killed.
There have been, that would be, yeah.
So let me make a couple of points, and then our psychologists can answer too. We don't know that they haven't come forward. We've been screaming about this for 6 years, and the media is not picking us up. We are insiders, if you will, who are explosives experts, who are technical experts, structural engineers, high-rise architects from inside the building industry blowing the whistle. We don't know how many have come forward that said, hey, I've blown the whistle and I set those charges. We have no idea if they're still alive. So in addition, there are several whistleblowers who have managed to come forward, Kevin Ryan being one of them in our film, who lost his job blowing the whistle on the fact that NIST hired UL to test these steel assemblies, and they did not fail. And yet this reported failure in them in order to justify it in their computer simulations how the building fell down. So we also have Stephen Jones, who's lost his job as a whistleblower, blowing the whistle on the findings of iron microspheres and all the World Trade Center dust and the nanothermite. By the way, young lady, you had a question about nanothermite, and I promised you I'd get back to you. Would you? But I just realized that there was a question also for our psychologist relative to whistleblowers. Do you want to address that? We'll come up to the microphone.
I'll just mention regarding whistleblowers, Bob, that we live in very sad times. Protection of whistleblowers is at an all-time low. The Los Angeles Times has reported that Obama has protected whistleblowers less than Bush. So
That's why I am asking, why not anonymous?
I'm sorry?
Why not? If I'm on the inside and I knew what happened, I'm not going to come out and say I know what happened, because I would be dead shortly. But if I just send an anonymous letter to the LA Times or the New York Times or whatever, anonymously.
But what good does that do? I don't see. I mean, they don't know who it's from.
They wouldn't publish it.
Anonymous whistleblowers lose credibility by definition.
Yeah.
Let's have the next question. Nanothermite.
Yeah, my original question was, in 2001, where was nanothermite available, produced, etc.? Could it have possibly come from?
The Lawrence Livermore Lab and at Los Alamos Lab documented the development of nanothermite, which, by the way, key consultants brought in by NIST were experts in the development of nanothermite. NIST itself was involved in the development of nanothermite. And these experts that brought in were placed in charge of the investigation of 9/11. So here we have the fox guarding the hen house relative to nanothermite. And it was developed in the late 90s. So it certainly wasn't set into buildings during their construction. And nor was C4 or RDX, as has been a myth, and is a question that comes up quite often. No, we don't set charges in high-rise buildings to bring them down real quick in case they start to fall over. It doesn't happen. Yes?
Quick question. The woman that died this week, whose husband was a pilot in Flight 93 or something like that, was she the one in Griffin's book that debunked some of the cell phone calls above 31,000?
I'm going to ask you to actually stand in line with that question. We'll take it in a moment. Yes?
Hi,
The line grew,
Bob
huh?
Mason, I'm out of Boulder.
Hi, Bob.
I'm back. I'm also one of your petition signers, by the way.
Thank you.
I have a question for our panel in their role as psychology professionals and clinicians. That has to do with the role of psychopathology in both the perpetrators as perpetrators and in ourselves as enablers.
I've thought about this a lot. I tend to obsess about Dick Cheney. And how can a Dick Cheney become Dick Cheney? One thing is that narcissists and antisocial personalities have a tendency to rise to the top because they don't care who they have to screw over to get there. And they, if you don't have a lot of capacity for remorse and guilt in your psychological makeup, you can be very, very focused, single-minded in going after power and going after money and so on. And so I think that's part of it. I also think about, once again, focusing on Dick Cheney, and I think people don't want to think of themselves as evil. We can look at what we think he's done and we can say, yes, that's definitely evil, but I can almost guarantee that he doesn't look at it that way, that he has an elaborate rationalization for what he's done that makes sense to him.
Yep.
Think about that one. Next question.
I have not read this. I just want to throw out someone in our group 911 group up in Boulder has talked about a book called The Sociopath Next Door. Has anybody read that? Okay, yeah. And so I don't know what's in it, but I'll just throw that out there. I like Dorothy's comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. Richard, just an excellent production. I had a follow-on question to Bob's question here about the perpetrators. Has anybody done any studies, like when you talk to the people who know about demolitions and know about the time it takes and the manpower it takes to plant explosives, has anybody ever done just an off-the-top estimate of how many people might have been involved in planning and actually doing the physical placement of the nanothermitic devices on the 3 buildings? And I've got to think that it's more than 10. I got to think maybe it's more than 100, but probably less than 1,000. And some of these people must be nearing retirement, or they're on their deathbed making a deathbed confession as to, they knew they were doing something that had to do with the World Trade Center, but they couldn't say anything because their family would be in danger. And I guess the answer has been given by our panel and the film, and it all rests on fear. How do you think you'll hear about it?
Yeah, right. The media.
You will not hear about it. I think that person might come to you or the members of the 911Truth movement and say, or their spouse, their surviving spouse may come and say, my husband or my wife, had a role in this. I don't know what these papers are, but you should have them. Yeah, that would be nice. We haven't had such disclosure. This gentleman here has.
Well, I was just going to say that.
Could you speak louder? We can't quite hear you. I'm just kidding.
The likelihood is that anyone who was involved didn't know what they were doing.
There's something.
I don't know how to manage a whistleblower campaign.
I just say, obviously, I'm not a military expert, but what is it called when people don't know? It's just the need to know. It's compartmentalization. So someone could have painted or however it got on there. They don't know.
That's what I'm saying. They don't even know.
Their job of elevator renovation.
Yep.
It could be some people were paid. It also may not have taken, Bob mentioned we met a woman who worked for the State Department. She spent 7 years in the Middle East, and she was in treatment. We're like, how many people would it take to know what really the plan was? And at the beginning of the week, she's like, I think about 15 could do this. I know how governments work. By the end of the week, it was like, name that tune. I think 7. So it was interesting to hear her say not that many people actually need to know in the first place, and the others are just doing their job.
There were 85 employees with Ace Elevator in the buildings when the first plane hit, and they fled. These are experts, theoretically, in the rescue of victims, and they always help the firefighters. And it was quite a scandal documented in USA Today on in October. And so we certainly want an investigation of Ace Elevator. They went out of business immediately after that and have been reorganized now. So that's a possibility for having set those explosives. It would take dozens of operatives months to plant those explosives. It's a very complex job. So there's investigations that have to happen. Fran?
Oh, I just wanted to add, as far as whistleblowers go, someone blowing the whistle saying, I did this, I don't know about that, but there was a founder of 911Truth, one of the founders of 911Truth.org has told me that she knows people on the inside who have said they would talk if there were an investigation where they'd be protected. And there's also journalists, many journalists who have said, yes, yeah, we would love to talk about, we would love to print about this, we'd love to write about this, but we've been told from the top that we cannot write about this.
Yeah, there's 90,000 tons of concrete in each of these buildings, and they're on the floors. And these floors are not found at the bottom of what's supposed to be a gravitational collapse. 110 of them, each an acre in size. And so where are they? You know, they're pulverized in midair into this fine powder, including the metal decking underneath the concrete, pulverized into small metal filings, which I found myself when I put a magnet over the dust inside of a plastic bag. This is amazing and extraordinary, and I don't know what would be responsible. Some powerful form of explosive laid very close to the concrete, such as fluorine or sprayed sprayed explosives, possibly nanothermite, which is engineered to become more explosive, but we don't really know how explosive it is or if it could be responsible for all of that pulverization. But there was a fireproofing project in each of the buildings in about 10 or 15 floors above and below the point of jet plane impacts relative to each of the planes that hit the towers in those areas. So and that's documented in Journal of 9/11Studies.com, an article by Kevin Ryan. I encourage you to read that. But there's a lot of unknowns, and that is certainly one of them.
Are you familiar with Dr. Judy Wood's conclusions and book? Can you address that at all?
Yes, Dr. Judy Wood has a theory that directed energy weapons may have been responsible for what she calls the dustification of the building. She claims that the steel, or most of it, was turned to dust through this unique technology that we have no evidence even exists. In addition to that, and I appreciate her trying to answer some unique phenomena, but there is no evidence that the steel was turned to dust. She, in particular, looks toward the video in which a small portion of the vertical columns remained standing for a few seconds after the rest of the building came down. There is a shock to that structural system that remains, and then it goes down. And as the shock happens to it, it shakes the dust off, and so she calls that dustification of the steel, but you can see the steel going down. In addition to manufacturing, what I call manufacturing evidence like that, she denies that there were explosions in the buildings, even though there are hundreds of witnesses, and it is on film as well, and audio, these explosions. She denies the molten metal and the heat created, and that's required to create molten iron spheres and other pools of molten iron seen documented by the first responders, etc., even structural engineers. So in denying some of the most basic forensic evidence that we have, I can only come to the conclusion that she's passing out disinformation. Well, there's 80,000.
How spreading, or what kind of percentage?
Well, we started with one, and that was me. Then I went and I spoke to the architects that I worked with. There was 15 of them. They thought I was nuts. But I bought them pizza. And at the end of the pizza, it was the film, Stephen Jones's presentation that I showed them, that convinced all of them about the controlled demolitions, all 15. One of them was Muslim, so he didn't sign a petition, but the rest did. Then we had 16. Now we have 1,700. Soon we'll have 17,000. So I'm not sure what the question is.
I'm just kind of curious as to what kind of percentage you have now.
Yes, there's thousands and hundreds of thousands of architects and engineers that need to be educated. Until they are, what they tend to say is, oh, that's conspiracy theory. because they're just like the rest of us. They're closed-minded, they're tied to their worldview, they're acting out of an emotional state when they sometimes even look at World Trade Center 7, and as the gentleman here back here said, sometimes they'll say, oh, that happens all the time. Or Chris Moore, and who's talking to other technical experts like Dave Thomas. Is Chris here? Ladies and gentlemen, this is Chris Moore, whom we have had debates with. And Chris is one of the more respected debunkers that we have had the opportunity to have exchanges with. So we're going to ask him what he thought of the evidence, and you're going to see firsthand the kind of thinking that goes on. This is not a technical expert. This needs to be acknowledged. He's a musician and an extraordinary genius musician. He is also not a theologian, but a minister. Minister. And has quite a remarkable set of gifts for this world. I don't think his technical responses are among them, but nevertheless, he has been more eloquent than many others, including physicists that we've debated, in highlighting his response to this information. So I wish I knew you were here earlier. I would have brought you up. We would have more stimulating conversation as well. So what did you think about the movie?
Well, it's been several months since I've seen it.
You didn't see the new version?
I haven't seen the new version, but my understanding... No, I didn't see it.
Oh, you just walked in?
I came from a concert.
Oh, you missed the movie.
I missed the movie. Now, I saw the bigger version of it, the 2-hour version.
This is my gift to Chris.
The cute product placement. Oh, yeah, thank you. I'm not kidding. I look forward to seeing this.
Yeah, so what would be the best use of our limited time here, given that it's 11:15 already?
Right.
And I want to give you an opportunity to say anything you want.
Oh my goodness. Well,
Except that.
Except that. Well, I really was not prepared for this. I thought I was just going to kind of quietly be back here, but I would say I am very glad that Richard is presenting the views that he is presenting. Very, very anti-censorship person, as I think many of you who have heard me in the debate would agree. And I'm very happy that his material appears on Channel 12, et cetera, et cetera. I don't agree with the technical things that obviously that you brought up, and for all the reasons that I had before, and then I learned some more things since that time.
Tell them about your video series.
Okay. If you go to Chris Moore 911 on YouTube, there's 22 videos that I put out that are just step-by-step rebuttals, respectful rebuttals of all the points that are in Blueprint for Truth. This material, I think, is very, very similar. We do believe in Blueprint for Truth, except that instead of you saying it all, it's now said by a lot of different experts. Yeah.
So many of the points have been addressed theoretically by your videos.
Yeah, my videos would be a respectful rebuttal, as opposed to what you get in the mass media, which is usually just anybody who believes this is an idiot and a psycho and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, Chris has stepped forward in a way that other debunkers haven't, and has been, first of all, polite, second of all, respectful, and third, and most importantly, has addressed the evidence straight on. Not even being a technical expert, he's talked to technical experts and really tried to present some very logical arguments. So we're now in the process of responding to Chris's videos. We've got. We're beginning to do that. We've been quite delayed, but because of this tour and creating this movie, we haven't been able to focus on it.
But you've got, I have about 238 points, and I think there's Rick is putting them all together on so we're going to have one side and the other side just sort of back and forth as well.
Yeah, so for the first time, you'll be able to compare. Well, here's the issue. Here's what the debunkers say. Here's what the conspiracy theorists are more likely. The 911Truth community say.
Well, I'm a conspiracy theorist. One person couldn't have done this. I mean, I don't know if we want to talk about issues. One thing that has come up. It's been quite a journey for me. And of course, I've been amazed at how relatively welcome I've been within this community, considering how much I disagree with you all. And I'm grateful for that. I said that at the debate as well. There's always this part of me that wants to find something that would just really convince me that controlled demolition is what it's about. And so to me, the evidence most strong in the last few years has been permitted materials in the dust, the grade chips. And so I wanted to see if it were possible to create another study, and I tried to challenge Richard's group about it, saying, get out there, get another independent study just to see if this happens. It wasn't happening. So then I ended up hiring Jim Millett, who's a scientist who had actually worked on the dust prior to as well in the EPA. I believe it's the EPA, but anyway, he did a study recently that has come out, the preliminary results are that there's definitely no thermite in the dust. And so that's going to, a final report on that's going to be coming out in a few months.
Well, let's address that.
Yes, sure.
We'll at least have a point about the nanothermite. The Millett study found chips, and these chips were not paint. So that's very interesting. It didn't know what they were, does a test on them, and I guess it didn't find aluminum. So they put them in a differential scanning calorimeter, which is a fancy name for a heater. And when the other scientists, our scientists, who did the peer-reviewed paper, led by Niels Harris, put these chips in at 420 degrees centigrade, they ignite and they produce molten metal with the spheres, microspheres, the same spheres with the same chemical signature that were found by officials throughout all the World Trade Center dust. And so the Millett study that Chris sponsored did not heat that up to that same temperature. So they didn't have the evidence that they would have found had they done that. And it would have created molten iron spheres. Why did they stop doing it?
And we were working on that actually, because Jim Millett basically said, he was doing a chemical study. He said, and I said to him, it would be great if you did all the same, you replicated the study in every way. And he said, it's not necessary to replicate it once there's no chemical evidence of thermal material. All we're seeing is, and he does believe they're paint chips, there's just a different kind of paint chip, he's not able to identify it. But basically, what he was saying was that. Now, I'm not a scientist, again, I'm a minister and a musician, but I wanted to see that, so that I'm still working on trying to get another independent DSC analysis taking place. I tried one guy, and they said if there's any chance of it being thermitic material, it's going to burn through the crucible, and I don't want to take a chance on ruining my equipment. So I finally found a place in Boston that might be able to do it, that can handle very high temperatures, which is an issue, by the way, with your testers, which is why didn't 4,500 degree thermites, if that's what it was that was burning, why didn't it destroy the crucibles themselves that were being held in?
Well, they did produce iron microspheres.
Right, and he's going to be looking at that too. That's something he has not come up with yet. He's going to be doing, by the time the final results come out, he will have studied the iron microspheres issue. What caused it? Because there's no answer to that yet.
On the question of whistleblowers, there's some political and legal barriers to having whistleblowers come forward. If you define a whistleblower as someone who actually was involved in and is guilty of participating in this crime, they're guilty of mass murder and capital crime that is subject to the death penalty. People in that situation don't come forward typically, unless they're maybe on a deathbed where it may be too late to have them testify, unless they're guaranteed immunity and can come in under oath, under subpoena, and testify in some environment. And even if they do that and are guaranteed protection, they're often assassinated or killed. Okay, so they're taking enormous risk to do that. And we've had the federal attorneys are all under the direction of the president and the attorney general. So none of those U.S. attorneys under Bush were going to do anything to see that this got handled that way. And there have been so-called whistleblowers, though, that have not been guilty, have not been involved in it. I think of Sybil Edmonds that we know about, who was a translator. Barry Jennings, who was the chief of custodial services for one or both Twin Towers. Shortly after he went public, or at least the video was published very widely, He was suddenly deceased.
2 days before the 9/11 Commission.
2 days before the commission.
Yeah. And it's people like Barry who are original witnesses who would have very potent evidence that are at the greatest risk. People who are merely reporters, and that would include Richard Gage, that would include David Ray Griffin. They're not eyewitnesses who can actually testify. And so they're less threatened, including those of us in this movement. Another person who was not involved but has enormous credibility is Stephen Pichenik. How many of you know about Stephen Pichenik? He's a psychiatrist. He entered Cornell University at the age of 16. When he was finishing his medical residency at Harvard, he also got a PhD in international relations. He claimed that he's the only psychiatrist with a PhD in international relations. He got that at MIT. And he was regarded as the country's foremost expert in terrorism. And he was training CIA and others in how to deal with terrorists. Mary McGrory, who won the Pulitzer Prize for writing about the yellow cake and the false evidence upon which the war in Iraq was based, called Stephen Pichenik one of the country's foremost experts in terrorism. In May of last year, after the so-called death of bin Laden, Pichenik went on Alex Jones' show in Austin in May of last year and said, "I will testify under oath, if called upon to do so, that a major American general known to everybody," I'm thinking it might have been Colin Powell actually, told him that 9/11 was an inside job. There is the man who was prosecuted for being part of the anthrax problem. He was on the verge of going to testify, and he suddenly died a mysterious death that they called a suicide, but all the circumstances suggest that's not what that was. And there's another physician, I think, in Houston, and some of you may recall who that is, who was also in a position to be a witness with actual evidence. He also died a rather sudden, mysterious death. That's the real obstacles that occur in regard to having whistleblowers come forward. We need a president who's willing to order his prosecutors to prosecute these crimes. And that's going to take spreading this kind of information very, very widely and electing a president who's willing to do that. And those who don't know, there's very good evidence that Obama was in the CIA back when he was at Occidental College and then at Columbia. And he went to work for Business International Corporation, which is a known CIA front. And he was in Afghanistan, that's known, and he was helping the Mujahideen, that's our ally. Osama bin Laden was our asset to fight the Russians. And Obama was part of that. And once you're in the CIA, you don't get out. You're part of it for life.
Thank you, Earl. Great point.
All right, well, we want to thank Richard very much for a wonderful program. And
thank you.
And before we go, I thought I'd mention just a couple of things. The attendance tonight was our largest ever for a forum. We had a count of either 165 or 166 people. It's also the longest forum we ever had. We started around 7 and it's now 11:35. I think that's to your credit. And we're very glad to have Chris here. And we will continue our dialogue. And tomorrow and Sunday, the People's Fair is going on in Denver. And 9/11, Colorado 9/11 Visibility has a table, and we are chained.
It's just right to the west of the...
Okay, and we thank you, you guys. You're a wonderful model of energy and creativity and enthusiasm, and we congratulate you. So thanks very much. We have some things to clean up. Anyone who wants to help do that, it'll help us all get home and get over to Fran's house sooner. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.